Okay, hello everyone. In this video here I'm going to try to make as good as I can of a step-by-step walkthrough of how to create a bootable USB drive to install OS X Mountain Lion on the Surface Pro. So the first thing that we're going to do here is create the USB to boot from, and for this we need three things. The first thing that we need is an 8 GB or larger USB thumb drive. The second is any kind of Mac or Hackintosh, basically just anything that can get you to the disk utility. And finally, you need the OS X Mountain Lion 10.8 installer. For this to work, you cannot use 10.8.4, I know that for sure. Possibly 0.1, 0.2, or 0.3 may work, but in this demo here I'm going to be using 10.8. Finally, you will also need the file that I provided in the description, which will contain the necessary bootloader installer and any drivers and things like that for after the fact. So let's just go ahead and get started here. So the first thing that you just need to do is plug in your USB drive, whichever one you're going to use. Here we go, this is a drive that I've made earlier. But then you just want to go ahead and open up your disk utility. And then come down here to where your flash drive is, and what you're going to do is come over here to the partition tab and change it to one partition. You can name it whatever you would like, but make sure your format is OS extended and journaled. And down here in the options menu, make sure you have the GUID partition table selected. So then we're going to go ahead and hit apply and partition this flash drive. Okay, now the next step is to find the install esd.dmg file that's located in your typical installer. So let me just show you how to get to that for those of you who don't know. So you'll come over here to your Mountain Lion installer, and you will show the package contents, and then you'll navigate to contents, into shared support, and then here is the install ESD file right here. I already have that dragged over to my desktop. And then all you do is you drag this install ESD into the disk utility here, and then you're just going to click on this install ESD file and make sure the restore tab is selected, and in here you should find source should be the DMG file, and the destination we're just going to click on our newly created partition and drag it to the destination and click restore, tell it it's okay to erase, and then type in the password. Now this should take probably about 10 to 15 minutes total, and at the end of it you may or may not get an error message telling you that it could not restore due to an invalid argument. Just ignore that error message if it comes up. Typically it doesn't actually mean anything. So we're just going to let this go ahead and copy everything to the flash drive. Okay, so now we'll just go ahead and wait for this to finish up. Okay, and here you can see I actually just got the restore failure error. Don't worry about that, just go ahead and hit OK, and we can just eject the flash drive and go ahead and plug it right back in. And there we go, working just fine. So now we can go ahead and close up the disk utility and close up the flash drive window that came up. And then we can just navigate to our OS X Surface Pro folder. Again, you can download this file using the link found in the description below. and we're just going to navigate to the pre-install folder and go to the Clover installer. Now what we're going to do here is just come over here to the Clover installer, and we're going to run it. Hit continue, continue, and the first thing we need to do here is change the install location to the flash drive, and hit continue. And now we just need to go ahead and hit customize. We need to check the box that says install for UEFI motherboards. We need to check the box for the driver 64 UEFI, and in themes I just typically go with Apple style, and then we just go ahead and hit install. It'll ask for your password. Just go ahead and type that in, and this should take just about 30 seconds or less to get everything installed. Alright, installation complete. As you can see, an EFI directory has just appeared on the desktop, and that is the EFI partition for the Clover bootloader. So what we're going to do is open up that bootloader, and we have two folders in here. We're just going to go ahead and trash both of those. And then what we're going to do is back over here, navigate to the Clover copy over folder, and copy both of these folders and paste them into the main directory. Again, it should take maybe 5 to 10 seconds. Okay, and that is it. We actually now have a completely bootable and ready to go flash drive to install OS X on the Surface. So I'm going to switch over to the Surface install, and I apologize in advance for any shaky camera. Okay, well, now that we have our trusty Mountain Lion USB created, we can go ahead and get the Surface booted up. So what we need to do is just plug it into the side as per usual, and power up the Surface while holding the volume down rocker down. And basically you just want to keep holding down this rocker until you boot onto the USB. In a second or two here we should see the Surface logo appear on the screen, and then we'll go to kind of just a blank screen for a couple seconds, and then we will load into the bootloader. Just keep holding down that rocker. Alright, and here we are in the Clover bootloader that we just created. You can see here we have a little Mountain Lion logo, and these two partitions over here are my old Windows partitions. Now to boot into the OS X installer, we just need to do one more thing. Just need to come down here to the Options tab and navigate down to the Graphics Injector menu, and make sure that Inject EDID here is checked. So then we can return to the main menu, return to the main menu again, and go ahead and boot the OS X installer. And now we just sit back and watch the magic happen. Alright, and here we are, right inside the OS X installer, easy as pie. So then what we need to go ahead here and do is click on the disk utility and hit continue. It's going to open up our familiar disk utility. Now we can just come over here and you'll see your hard drive will look something similar to this, whether it's the 128 gig or the 64 gigabyte model. And we just are going to come over here and do the same partitioning that we did to our flash drive. One partition, and you can call it whatever you want. I typically call my hard drives by the name of the OS. So we'll call it Mountain Lion, and then we'll come down here to Options, and again make sure that we have our GUID partition table selected, and hit apply, and then watch fearfully as our entire hard drive is erased in a half second and repartitioned. Okay, so once we have that done, we can go ahead and hit the X in the top right corner here, close out our disk utility, and then click on the reinstall OS X and hit continue. Now it loads our good old faithful Mountain Lion installer. You can just hit continue, hit agree, and then just select your newly created hard drive and partitioned and just hit install. And now I'm just going to wait here for a second while it's preparing our install for us. Okay, and once it finishes that first procedure there, it's just going to go ahead and reboot your Surface for you. At this point, you should not have to hold down any volume rocker because if there is no active operating system on your partition on the Surface will actually default to booting from the USB stick. So we'll just stand by and wait for it to do that. Okay, and so now we're going to have two Mountain Lion icons here. You can see one is boot Mac OS X from, and the other is boot OS X install from. We want to go ahead and select the boot OS X install from, but first we need to come down here and change our graphics injector. Okay, and we'll go ahead and boot that. And again, we will wait for this to load back into the full-blown installer. Okay, so now this is going to complete its installation. Typically this takes between about 15 and 20 minutes. So what I'm going to do is cut the video here, and then I'll cut back in when we're just about done with the install. Alright, and here we are, just about at the end of the install. It should just be maybe 10 to 20 more seconds here. Alright, the installation is complete. So at this point we can just go ahead and hit the restart button. Again, because there is no bootloader as of yet on the Surface, it doesn't know where to boot from, so it will again default to the flash drive. So we can just stand by again and wait for it to load the flash drive for us. Alright, here we are back at the bootloader. Now here's the confusing part. We have two Mountain Lion options to boot from now, and if you look at the bottom, they both are identical. Both say boot Mac OS X from. I found that the option on the furthest right seems to do the trick, but first we need to come back again as we've done before. Come down to our graphics injector and inject the EDID. This should be fixable if you don't want to check this every time in your config.plist file in your EFI partition. I just haven't had time to get around to fixing that yet. So we can just go ahead and hit return, and now we are going to boot into our new installation of OS X. Alright, if you see this screen, it is a great sign. Typical welcome screen. So now we can just go ahead and set this up like you would a normal Mac. To start here, tell it that the computer does not connect to the internet. We'll worry about that later. And we can accept the licensing agreement. You can go ahead and put in your account information. And hit continue, and now it will create an account for us. Now we can set our time or our area. And hit continue, and then we can start using our Mac. And that's how easy it is. We are now at the desktop. You may notice right off the bat, it's kind of hard to show on video, but the color is a little bit washed out when you first turn this on. That's easily changed. You can recalibrate your color and everything like that. So the next thing that we need to do here, the next big thing, is get the Clover bootloader installed natively on the hard drive. So what we want to do, so we don't get confused with the two EFI partitions, is at this point remove the installer flash drive. You'll get an error. And then just use another USB stick, or even if you want, you could put these extra files on the OS X installer. I like to keep things separate. But then you just need to go ahead and plug in your other flash drive and wait for it to come up. And there it is in here. So what I just have in here is the same folder that we were using to create the flash drive, this OS X Surface Pro folder. We can just drag that to the desktop here while we're working on it and wait for it to copy. And the procedure here is going to be relatively similar to how we prepare the flash drive. We're just going to go ahead and navigate to our post-install folder. And in here we have two options. We have the Clover installer, and we also have the installation materials for full battery support and for audio support. Because with this particular build, as you can see as I'm using the volume rockers, it registers, however, there is no audio. So what we're going to do is go ahead and install the Clover bootloader once again. Oh, yes, if the first thing that we need to do, if you saw that there, that was saying a security error because it was an unsigned program. So if we just launch System Preferences and come up here to Security and Privacy, we can go ahead and click the lock at the bottom left to make changes. And down here we can see this option that says Allow Application Download From. We want to tell it to install from anywhere. So then we can go ahead and close that and come back here to our Clover installer and run that again. And this should all look familiar. We're going to hit Continue and Continue. This time we don't have to change the installation because we do want to install it on Mountain Lion. And then we're just going to come back down here and do our Customize and do everything the exact same way that we did the first time. And we're going to hit install. It'll ask for the password once more. And now it's going to go ahead and get the Clover installed for us. Now this time, you can see now the EFI partition has appeared down below here. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to highlight everything in that EFI partition. Just trying to get this to focus here a little. And we're just going to drag that to the trash. And then we can go ahead and open up our Surface Pro folder again. Navigate to the post-install directory, go into our Clover copy over, and we're just going to go ahead and once again copy these two folders and paste them in. And it's as easy as that. So that's how we install the Clover bootloader. To check and make sure that that's working, we can just go ahead and hit restart up here. And now we are going to, and I'm just going to unplug this other flash drive on the side here. We're now going to reboot the entire system without using any kind of boot flash drive at all. And if you ever seem to have any issues with rebooting, you can sometimes just hold down the power button and do a manual power off, and then try to reboot it from scratch. And there we go. Now we can see Surface logo as per usual. And there we are. There's the Clover bootloader. No USB or anything like that plugged in here. So then, just again as always, come down here, inject the EDID, turn to the main menu, and boot from OS X. Once this boots for you as well, you can feel free to remove the verbose flag from the bootloader. We don't need to see all of this boot code every time. You can feel free to remove that and just to see the standard Apple logo. And there you go, that's boot time. It's pretty fast. So we can go ahead and log in here. Fantastic. It may say that it can't detect your keyboard. My setup assistant just came up here. So just set it up as it asks you to. And that will be that. So now that we are on our desktop here, we only have two more things to do, and that would be install the audio drivers and install the battery drivers. So let's again navigate inside the OS X Surface Pro folder, and we'll go to the post-install directory. But this time we're going to go to the battery and audio. And first thing we're going to do is install the audio. This is just a generic Voodoo audio package, so we're just going to go ahead and run it. Select Mountain Lion, obviously, as the place where you want to install it, and we're going to hit install. Okay, and as you notice it did that. However, the audio is not working yet, but that will work on the reboot. So finally we're going to go ahead and install the battery information. So we're going to go back a directory and go into our battery kexts folder. Okay, now it's all left to do is to install the battery information. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here, and there is a program called KextDrop that we're going to go ahead and open up. And all we're going to do is drag and drop kexts into it. So we're going to go inside the battery kexts folder, and for each one of these we're just going to go ahead and drag and click install. Let it do its thing. It'll say installation successful after every good attempt. And finally, file install. And hit OK. Alright, now that everything is successful, what we're going to do is just go ahead and reboot the machine. back on. Alright, here's our bootloader. So we'll go into our options. I'm going to change my graphics injector option as we normally do. And also just to show you, like I mentioned for our last boot, I'm just going to come up here to our boot arguments. This can also all be modified in your config plist file. And I'm just going to remove the verbose mode flag so you can see how this boots without that flag. So now we can just go ahead, and now we get the standard in 1080p Apple boot logo. And now we'll just stand by as we wait for it to work. Alright, and there we have it. So we can log in here. And now we can see up here in our top right corner, let's see if I can get this to focus. There we go. We now have a volume icon and a battery icon indicating that the battery is charged. We can even tell to show the percentage if we want. And the volume rocker on the left hand side. Alright, so there you have it. That's how you get a fully operational OS X build to work on the Surface Pro. Just show you, have the pen here, and we can hover the cursor so the pen works without doing anything else special. Now as far as getting internet access on here, you can either get a USB Ethernet dongle that works just fine. You can also get a number of USB wireless adapters as long as they have OS X drivers. Bluetooth does not work, and I'm not expecting it to work anytime soon. And who knows about the touchscreen? Maybe I'll figure something out with that. Finally, basically anything that is Apple software related, like your iMessage, FaceTime, things like that, they also do not work on here right now. Maybe that'll get fixed later on, but probably not. It seems like Apple has cracked down on that pretty well. That should about do it for me. So as per usual, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to leave a message for me below, or send me a message directly. Either or is fine. Happy hacking!